Morning.
Good morning.
All right. What have we got today, Pastor Eric?
Oh, we have two stories today. We have an Old Testament story and a New Testament story.
Ooh, fun.
Yeah, so the Old Testament story is about Moses and Pharaoh. What's a Pharaoh? What's a Pharaoh?
A leader.
And he wasn't just a king, it was a he. Well, it wasn't just a king, what else was he?
In Egypt, they thought of their Pharaoh as like a god.
Yeah, so he was like a divine.
This was a little bit of a showdown versus, like Pharaoh who thinks he's a god versus God.
Yeah, the one God, the God of Moses. So this Moses story, we're going to talk about Moses today, and we're going to talk about him for the next 2 weeks. But we're going to actually have a break after this, so we'll have a cliffhanger, and then we're going to come out because King Street Kids Q&A is going to take a little break for a while, but it'll be back in December. But after when we come back, we're going to talk about the Ten Commandments and from the wilderness to the Promised Land. But today, let's read a little bit about Moses. What do y'all know about Moses first?
Well, I mean, I know I watched the Prince of Egypt, that animated movie. So Moses was born and he was adopted and then raised in the palace, and then struggled and ran away because he hurt someone pretty bad, and then came back as God's chosen to liberate the people.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
And a little bit of lead in, a little bit of bridge. So a little bit of bridge from last week's story with Joseph to this week's story with Moses. We remember at the end of the story, we had, Joseph was in Egypt. There was this famine going on, but Egypt had food. And so Joseph brought his family from Canaan over to Egypt so that they could go through the famine together and survive. And so it was Joseph's brothers and their families that came, and then they just settled in Egypt and had kids and had more children and more children. And there were so many of them, these, by the time they, down the road, they just called them the Hebrew people, that the Egyptians decided to put all of these Hebrew people into slavery, and make them, work for Egypt for no pay and be under the control of Egypt. And so this didn't take place overnight. This took place over hundreds of years. So we're now hundreds of years down the line, and the people who are like descendants from Joseph, descendants of Jacob, descendants of Abraham way back, are now slaves in Egypt. And there were so many of them that Pharaoh was getting nervous because the people from the Hebrew people largely outnumbered the people of Egypt. And so Pharaoh was getting nervous that if the people wanted to turn on him, they could. So he was really, really harsh towards the Hebrew people.
That's excellent, PR. That's a good point. It's a bridge from where we were to where we're going. So enter this unlikely savior of these people, this little baby named Moses. Okay, from the Spark Study Bible, baby Moses. Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, was afraid. He was rich and powerful and scared. What would he be scared of? Well, strangely enough, Pharaoh was scared of God's people, the Hebrews. He thought there were too many of them, and he was afraid that they would try to become more powerful than he was. To make sure the Hebrews had no power, Pharaoh made them his slaves and ordered them to work very hard. Even worse, he demanded that all the Hebrew baby boys should be drowned in the Nile River. Because of this, God's people were terribly afraid too. Everyone in Egypt was afraid. During this fearful time, a baby boy was born to a Hebrew mother. She loved her baby boy, and of course she wanted him to live. The baby's mother kept him safe from drowning, like Pharaoh said was going to happen, by making a floating basket for him. She put her baby in the basket and then hid in the water in plants at the edge of the Nile River. the baby's big sister, Miriam, hid near the shore and watched over the basket. What happened next was really amazing. Pharaoh's daughter came down to the river to take a bath. She saw the basket among the water and plants and asked her servant to go and get it. When she opened the basket, she was surprised to see a baby boy cry. This must be one of the Hebrews' children, said Pharaoh's daughter. He's awfully cute. Wouldn't it be fun to keep him? Aha, thought Miriam. I can help her. Miriam bravely stepped out of her hiding place. I could probably find someone to help take care of the baby for you until he's a little older, she said. That would be perfect, said Pharaoh's daughter. Miriam was excited to tell her mother the news. The baby's mother took good care of him. When he was old enough, he went to live with Pharaoh's daughter. Miriam and her mother prayed he would be safe with her. I think I will name him Moses, said Pharaoh's daughter, because I took him out of the water. Moses lived in Pharaoh's palace until he grew up to be a man. During that time, life became worse and worse for the Hebrews. Eventually, however, Moses helped free God's people so that they could leave Egypt. Now there was something besides fear for God's people. There was hope. Mm-hmm. Okay, now we're going to hear about that exit later. Mm-hmm. And what happened after that. But that's enough for us to talk about today. So this is from the book of Exodus. What does Exodus mean? I just said the word a minute ago.
Exit.
Exit. Leaving. Yeah. So what are they leaving? What is exit? Who is leaving and what's happening? Why is it Exodus?
They're leaving Egypt.
That's right. So this is a spoiler alert of what's going to come next week. They're leaving. They're also leaving slavery into freedom, into the promised land. So how did God talk to Moses? But was it?
He was the burning bush.
Yeah.
What are you? What? I don't understand.
The burning bush. I know, right?
I don't understand. How is that?
Yeah. So the story kind of runs over this, but what happened after, and Daniel kind of alluded to this or pointed to this, was at one point after Moses was older, he ran away from Egypt. He ran away. He was scared. And he lived out in the desert, and he met, it was a man named Jethro, and ended up marrying Jethro's daughter. And I'm trying to think of his daughter's name. Zipporah. Married Zipporah. And made a life for himself away from Egypt for a little while. And, could have been where the story left him, but God had other plans in mind. And, God told him he had to go back to Egypt. And, the way that God did that is Moses was out tending some sheep, minding his own business one day, and he came across this bush that was on fire, the burning bush, but it wasn't being burnt up. So it was like, because normally if you see something burning, it turns to ash and everything, it gets consumed. But this bush was on fire, but it wasn't being burned up. And a voice spoke to Moses out of this burning bush and told him he had to go back to Egypt.
That's a little strange to me.
Yeah.
But it's because God sometimes does that. God sometimes comes to people in ways that we don't expect. So that's where we to be continued. We're going to say to be continued because there's some big things that happen to Moses and to the people, and there's a kind of a great chase scene we're going to hear about next week, and we'll find out what happens there. So to be continued. We'll hear more about that.
So they gotta wait till after Thanksgiving to hear the story.
Yeah, we're gonna wait until December to hear about this. Yeah, it's gonna be a while.
Patience, children.
They'll get there. Okay, now, okay. So the next story we have is the New Testament story, and these are big words. The Garasene demoniac. What is that? As I looked in this book, it's not in the children's Bible.
Yeah.
It sounds.
feel like with a name like demoniac, it probably relates to demons. And that
Yes.
may not be something we put in a children's Bible.
Yeah, that's
Well,
scary, Daniel. That sounds scary. What do we
could
do with
be.
that?
Well, let's see. So I looked. It's not in the children's Bibles. We're going to look at a middle school Bible here. The other one. Okay. So let's read this one. Let's hear what this is all about. Jesus heals the Garasene demoniac. Then they arrived at the country of the Gerasenes, which is opposite Galilee. As he stepped out on land, a man of the city who had demons met him. For a long time, he had worn no clothes, and he did not live in a house, but in the tombs. Ooh, this sounds like a Halloween story.
Yeah.
When he saw Jesus, he fell down before him and shouted at the top of his voice, "What had you to do with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I beg you, do not torment me." For Jesus had commanded the unclean spirit to come out of the man. I'm back here. He was kept under guard and bound with chains and shackles, but he would break the bonds and be driven by the demon into the wilds. Jesus then asked him, "What is your name?" He said, "Legion," for many demons had entered him. They begged him not to order them to go back into the abyss. Now there on the hillside, a large herd of swine was feeding, and the demons begged Jesus to let them enter these. So he gave them permission. Then the demons came out of the man and entered the swine, and the herd rushed down the steep bank into the lake and was drowned. When the swineherd saw what had happened, they ran off and told it in the city and in the country. Then people came out to see what had happened. And when they came to Jesus, they found the man from whom the demons had gone sitting at the feet of Jesus, clothed and in his right mind. And they were afraid. Those who had seen it told them how the one who had been possessed by demons had been healed. Then all the people of the surrounding country of the Gerasenes asked Jesus to leave them, for they were seized with great fear. So he got into the boat and returned. The man from whom the demons had gone begged that he might be with them. But Jesus sent him away, saying, "Return to your home and declare how much God has done for you." So he went away, proclaiming throughout the city how much Jesus had done for him. All right, what do we make of that?
It has some scary parts, but at least it has a happy ending.
Yep.
Yeah.
If you owned the pigs, if you were the pig owner, you probably wouldn't be too happy. But yeah. Okay.
Yeah, you kind of lost your whole herd there, but
Yeah. All right.
Mm.
Oh yeah, this is tough for little boys and girls to hear. It's kind of a scary story, but oftentimes God says to us over and over, "Do not be afraid." So how by the end you said it was a happy ending. I agree. How are we not supposed to be afraid at the end? How does God tell us not to be afraid or show us not to be afraid?
Yeah. I mean, I think this is a story that we can take with us, that Christ is, yeah, there's scary stuff out there. There's scary things, and definitely hearing about someone being tormented by demons is, really, really, really scary. But we get out of this that Christ is greater than that. And Christ, in the other place, because he wasn't in Galilee. He wasn't on his home turf. Christ in the other place meets this person of the other place and heals him too. So the healing that Christ brings isn't for just people from one certain place. It's for everybody, and there's nothing too big that Christ can't bring healing to.
Here's the key verse. The key verse, and I see why this is a key verse, is this. This is from Luke chapter 8, verse 39. "Return to your home and declare how much God has done for you." So he went away, proclaiming throughout the city how much Jesus had done for him. So the takeaway is not all of the scary stuff. God is with them and makes things new, better. and then we people about it and show other people. I think that's the good news here in this story.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Isn't it interesting though, the people saw what Jesus did and wanted him to get away?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like if I just saw a herd of pigs careen to the cliffside, I would probably be like, I don't know that you really passed the
vibe
check
check.
to be here. Like, I don't know that I want you hanging around.
Who are you?
Yeah. Right.
So,
all right. Well, we'll leave it at that.
yeah.
Okay. So we'll have a few weeks break from King Kids Q&A, but we will be back in a few weeks, and we'll continue the fun. How's that?
All right.
Wonderful. Be well, everybody.
All right. Bye now. Bye.